Today's video, we're going to do the top 10 loadouts currently within Warzone. I was waiting till that brand new shotgun got introduced. There's still one more weapon coming in within this season, or supposed to come in, and that's supposed to be some kind of butterfly knife, which I don't really think will impact the meta when it comes to Warzone. Maybe in multiplayer, it'd be kind of fun to mix it up with another melee weapon, but in terms of Warzone, so I think this meta is fairly fixed until they introduce new weapons, possibly in Season 7 or later on. And as I normally do for these types of videos, I've included timestamps in the description as well as along the time bar for YouTube for your convenience. If you do enjoy the video, learn something new, please do me a favor, hit the like button. Goal in today's video is 4,000 likes, so hopefully you can help me hit that number. If you're brand new, looking to find your way back for more Call of Duty content, make sure you are subscribed with notifications on. So you can kind of see the list here all the way through. I'm going to go through the various attachments and talk about the different scenarios because they have changed up a little bit from Season 5. Just because I've changed a few things doesn't mean you would necessarily need to change them. It's just kind of like depends on how you want to play. This one is always my experimental class. I usually put that at the bottom. If I'm just trying to sweat out, try and go for kills, I usually go with the Kilo MP5 as my #1 class. But then I normally am going to go ahead and do with something experimental. If I'm testing something for YouTube, I want to see how something plays out. So this is always different and always changing. I had this one, experimenting with different lethals. I've kind of come to terms that Semtex are ideal way to go. Thermites are cool. C4 still have their place. But when it comes to certain things, it really just depends on what you want to use. Personally, I like Semtex or Claymores. Those are my main go-to for lethals. And when it comes to tacticals, I usually start off with the heartbeat sensor, then transition to a stun grenade. And we'll go ahead and talk a little bit through those options. When it comes to perk, I always run EOD, Overkill, Ghost, or Restock, and then Amp for that third perk. As far as double time, you can go ahead and use that if you want to move around the map more, but EOD can come in handy for those times. It's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. It's just one of those scenarios. Cold-blooded is kind of a waste. Anyone still using that, it's kind of really a waste unless you're just trying to avoid the vehicles and plunder being shot at. And that's really, besides that, there's no real reason to use that. So that's the experimental. Then I have the HDR with Restock and Ghost. The only difference here is I've changed the lethal from a Semtex to a Claymore when I have Restock. And the difference in these two is if I land late game and I just want Ghost or second loadout and I'm thinking, all right, we're going to play a little bit more aggressive. I want my sniper. I want to be able to have a sniper available. I can grab this one with Ghost. I grab my stun and then I keep a Semtex from the first loadout. So I get a Restock up on that. I get amped and EOD. When it comes to the overall Restock class, this one, hey, you know what? I know we're going to have to hold down a building late game. I get this 5th zone. I want to be able to restock so I can post up an area and get a win because sometimes the circumstances require you to kind of post up. If you're just running around late game, you don't have all your weapons or something like that, Claymores can be very beneficial in leading to more wins, especially when you're not going to be running Ghosts and then you're going to be able to stock up, have double stun. So a lot of good things there. As far as the secondary, I mean, this doesn't really matter. I'll try to usually find a weapon, but this is a normal close range. You could always swap this to another attachment if you want, maybe a suppressor. But I have the Renetti pistol with the 3-round burst mod, 5 milliwatt laser, lightweight trigger, and then 27-round mag. And then over here for the HDR, I actually have the monolithic suppressor, HDR Pro, tac laser, variable zoom, and then I have the FTAC Stalker Scout. And some of these I actually have the FTAC Champion. I've been kind of experimenting back and forth with those. I feel like both are pretty good. This one gives you a little bit more aiming stability, which obviously if you're ADSing for a long period of time at people at range, you want it to stay as steady as possible with as least amount of idle sway. But obviously faster ADS time could be a little bit more practical in certain scenarios. So I've been experimenting a little bit, seeing if I feel a difference. One of the things I did grind out recently that's changed is I used to run this optic here, this pinpoint, but I saw some other people running the cover shot and I liked how clean and tight and like thin the lines were. So I tried it out. Still getting used to it because I had so much playtime with this pinpoint one that's been a little bit of getting used to. But so overall, it's really a matter of preference. But I like these two for the fact that how clean they are. And that's the same class setup for both of those. And as far as the Grau, Restock, Grau, Ghost, these would be Zone 5. type of loadouts. Hey, you're coming back from the gulag, you don't really have anything, you want Ghost or Restock. I think Grau is one of the faster rifles that has very low recoil even after the nerf. So I think it's one of those weapons you could just pick up. I did have an overkill type class before, but I think it might be more practical to have Restock or Ghost. So I kind of swapped that out from the overkill. And this one already has built-in fully loaded on this Grau. So I have monolithic suppressor, Archangel, commando, 60 round mag, and then fully loaded. Normally you would have attack laser on this type of weapon. And then the Renetti pistol is pretty much the same thing. As far as Ghost, Semtex, and then stun grenade. So you can see kind of for those both there, the only difference is Ghost and Restock and the Semtex and Claymore. Again, matter of preference, but I have different scenarios that make sense to have those. Then this is really like the top 5 loadouts. We're actually in a good spot with rifles where I wish we had 20 loadouts so I could just have all the different scenarios planned out with various weapons. Because when you actually go through the rifles, there's a lot of good rifles. I would like to use the RAM more often. Obviously, I have that as more of an experimental. AMAX is cool and not so much. I like the AS Val as an SMG. M4, I've taken it off my list, even though I still think it's top tier. M13, I really like. It does burn through ammo, but obviously we only have a certain number of spots. Odin's cool. It does, you know, it can be inconsistent at time because of the recoil, rate of fire, little variables there. But overall, we have a really good meta in terms of availability of rifles that are decent. I just wish we had a better availability of secondaries in terms of SMGs, shotgun balance. Because right now we do have a little bit of a variety in there, but it's just not quite as good. So here's this class setup for the Grau. I've swapped that out for the rubberized grip. Like I said, you could do the tack laser if you want to. I just feel like after the nerf, it feels better with the rubberized. I kind of switch back and forth. They both feel good. And then we got the R9 shotgun. You could easily swap this for the JAK 12. This one would be more of an aggressive type of shotgun. I think the JAK 12 is perfectly fine for holding an area. R9 is just jump in their face, you know, 2-tap them, they're down. Push the next person, 2-tap them, they're down. And this one's still incredibly broken. Obviously, shotgun's got to be good. But in terms of TTK, this kills in 100 milliseconds, while every other gun, even the fastest, besides snipers, you're talking about 400 to 600 milliseconds. So there's ways that they could nerf this, but in reality, they really can't. There's no really way to do it unless they nerfed it to the ground, which isn't really good, but it does create an imbalanced weapon. And this one, we just have the choke, forge tack, sentry, 5 milliwatt for the tighter spread. And then we also, in this one, we talked about how powerful that one is when we were talking about the brand new JAK 12. How much that 5 milliwatt just tightens that spread. It's ridiculous. And then we got the Merc foregrip. You could swap this out. I mean, that helps with aim down sight speed. I mean, you could even drop this if you wanted and maybe put on sleight of hand so you could actually reload faster. Or you can actually work on your sprint to fire speed, which will be for the hip fire. So you got 3 different options there. It's really a matter of preference. You could go with something if you're just going to spam and you want to be able to control it so both shots go where they're supposed to. Or you want to be able to spam it and you can get the shot off faster. I mean, you got a little bit of changes there. 5 milliwatts does a lot in that department. So that's that loadout. Now we have an issue where the AMAX is just the better rifle overall, especially if you learn how to manage that recoil, which it can be a lot at times, especially if someone's really far, like 150 meters. But usually within 150 meters, if you just tap it lightly, you're going to be able to reduce the recoil quite a bit and be able to manage it versus just holding the trigger, which is difficult to do because then you kind of run out of ammo pretty quickly. So I have 3 AMAX class setups. 2 of them are different. We have the HDR here and the class setup. This one's more built for close to medium range. I'm not a fan of the iron sights. If you are, you could swap this for tack laser or, you know, or something else, right? Maybe sleight of hand, maybe stipple grip, whatever. But I run the monolithic, Zodiac, Commando, 45 round mag, and then we have the PBX hollow. You can really use any hollow. I know that the Corp Combat is another one that people like, and then this Apex one is pretty popular as well. But it all comes down to a matter of preference. You got to use them, find out what you like. But one of the biggest things with the holographics that 10 people lean towards is having a blue dot sight. So if you haven't grinded those out, they're at least worth grinding out. If not, you don't have those and maybe it doesn't look as clear, a VLK might be a better option, but then this won't really be your close range option, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And then we have the HDR. Again, like I said, pretty much the same exact class setup. FTAC Stalker Scout or the Champion. It's really a matter of what you prefer and a kind of experience. I'm still experimenting, playing with it. You know, it's kind of boring using the exact same thing all the time. So I do experiment here and there. And that's why I have my experimental class. I leave these for if I'm playing with certain people that we're only going to play a certain way, I'm going to play a certain way. If we're going to chase kills, I'm going to play that way or go for a win. It doesn't matter. I have enough loadouts for the setup. And then if I'm doing a specific video on a specific weapon, then I have that one as experimental so I could try it out and it's on the forefront. And then we have, again, all this stuff pretty much the same. And then when we go over here, we actually, I like the SPO as well. I think it's a good option. I think if I wanted to run with like maybe an SMG, like an MP7 or MP5, which would be incredibly hard to do on controller, I think keyboard and mouse, you can get away with it just because of how accurate you can be at range. I would use the Kar 98 probably over the SP, but I prefer the SP just because it's like a hybrid between that HDR, which I really enjoy, in the Kar 98. So class setup for the SPR is the monolithic SPR 26-inch barrel. We got the tack laser, variable zoom scope. Again, I use the same optic that we were talking about, especially since they fixed this. I use the reticle that we talked about earlier, where you can swap that out, and then I have the normal mag rounds, just because those have a little bit more consistency in terms of bullet drop, bullet velocity, and those types of things. And these are usually like my first loadout that I would just grab, and then, you know, you buy that loadout, and then when you get time to get the second loadout or the free one comes in or whatever, then you switch to one of these. Or late game scenario, you switch to one of these, and that gives you the option to be able to compete in a bad scenario. And then we have the AMAX here, where I switch it up a little bit. And then this one has a BLK optic, and that's because this is going to be more my long range option. BLK does have a little bit of recoil reduction in terms of actually helping out with your recoil. I think that's more of a bug that they just never gotten around to fixing. The Ranger foregrip, it will make it a little bit slower, but in terms of recoil, it helps out significantly. Especially since I'm going to be trying to hit targets between about 40 meters up to about 150, 180 meters with this weapon. And then we got the MP5, which is that close range weapon. And what I've done is I've swapped out the sleight of hand for the hip fire, just because a lot of times you can start the gunfight in hip fire. This helps the sprint to fire speed. So you get those first bullets out faster while someone's trying to ADS. You're already halfway through winning the gunfight. And with the 5 milliwatt hip fire is pretty tight. You're going to land a few more of those shots. By the time you ADS get on target, you don't need to land that many to delete that player. So that's why I've kind of switched that out, just because I felt like in scenarios I'm winning more gunfights because I'm starting to land more shots in the hip fire before I actually make it fully ADS. So I don't waste as much ammo. I don't have to reload quite as quick, and you can get around that. So it's really a matter of preference. So experiment with it. I know some people are still on collapsible stock. Some people use the monolithic suppressor over the monolithic integral. At the end of the day, do what works for you, but these are just what I like to use. And then we got the #1 all-around class, just because it's super easy to use. We got the Kilo, monolithic suppressor, single arms, commando, 60 round mag, VLK, and this pretty much has not changed. Some people are using the holographic sight. Like I said, if you have the blue dot, it looks clean, but overall, like, I think just this one is so nice and clean. The reticle I use is the T-pose. Sometimes I go to the default. Those are the only two I use, even though I've grinded them all out. I've tried them all in real game scenarios. I only like the T-pose or the default. And when it comes to MP5, same one we just talked about. Integral, 5 milliwatt, Merc, 45 round mag, and stippled. And that ends up being the top, 10 loadouts. Obviously, there's tons of other loadouts that you could use that are perfectly viable. I just feel like this is a good top 10 list to include, so you kind of have an idea of where to start, and obviously you build out some other ones for scenarios that might not make sense. Maybe you're not comfortable running Restock, or you don't care about ghosts. You just remove those, swap out other loadouts. But hopefully you guys did enjoy the video, learned something new. I do appreciate everyone that did go over to Discord. We jumped up a huge number from the last video that I was able to explain how you're able to party up with people and start getting wins with people in the community that are similar, like-minded, whether it's, overall aggression, the way they play, a little more passive, they're playing for kills, playing for wins, different skill levels, 1 KD, 5 KD. You got all that flexibility in there. So appreciate you guys all stopping by over there. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you're brand new, want to find your way back, make sure you subscribe, notifications on, all that good stuff. Appreciate all the support on the channel. Thank you for watching. As always, have a great day.